Good morning, young people. This is Thursday. Today's date is September the 3rd, 2020. I want to do a summary review and go over what your work is to look like today. The first thing I have on the document that you should have looked at is your bell ringer. So you make sure that you do the link, complete the bell ringer. The second thing is for you to choose an activity. You have a choice to either make a PowerPoint, do a YouTube video, or create a timeline. I have instructions on there. You can type in the chat if you have other questions, or you can email me at tjcooper@jmcss.org if you have other questions about any one of those items. You only need to pick one, and you need to email those things to me. Then you have an exit ticket link. Make sure you complete the exit ticket. Okay, click the link. And then you need to study for your quiz on tomorrow. Tomorrow your quiz is going to talk about witches in Lancaster County, the Palace of Versailles, the Petition of Right, the Divine Right of Kings, the English Civil War, the Glorious Revolution, the Restoration, Oliver Cromwell, Louis XIV, Cardinal Richelieu, Cardinal Mazarin, Ivan the Terrible, Peter the Great, Frederick William, Queen Elizabeth I. So the ones that I know that I did not mention in any of the lectures this week, Ivan the Terrible is connected to Russia. He ruled up until 1598. It was important that you knew his name because he's the one that kind of created the situation for the absolute ruler, Peter Romanov. The Romanov family had a long dynasty in Russia and actually changed a lot of the course of history in Russia. So make sure you can make the connection between Ivan the Terrible and Peter the Great. They're from Russia. We talked about Louis XIV, Cardinal Richelieu, Mazarin. They're both advisors in France to Louis XIII. Richelieu was advising Louis XIII. Mazarin was advising Louis XIV. But both of those gentlemen had similar ideas that allowed those two rulers to be absolute rulers. Louis XIV was very vain and extravagant. Make sure you're connecting him with France. Make sure you have a date associated with his rule. Frederick William is Prussia. Okay, Prussia is a Germanic state, so make sure you connect Frederick William with Germany. Did I say Russia? Hope not. Frederick William is Germany. Peter the Great is Russia. Ivan the Terrible is Russia. Cardinal Mazarin is France. Cardinal Richelieu is France. Louis XIV is France. Queen Elizabeth is England. Oliver Cromwell is England. The Restoration, the Glorious Revolution, and the English Civil War. Those are some things that I really want you to focus some energy on because I don't feel like we talked enough about that. We spoke briefly about Oliver Cromwell, but all three of those, the English Civil War, the Glorious Revolution, the Restoration, and Oliver Cromwell, all of that's England. So if you want to Google that stuff, you can, or you can go back and listen to the recordings where that was there. The Divine Right of Kings, we talked about that in depth. Make sure you can understand what that was about. The Petition of Right, okay, that came from one of the bell ringers that you had. So if you want to go back and listen to a previous recording, or if you want to Google the Petition of Right, that is connected to, I'm going to say that's England as well. Yeah, that's England as well. The Palace of Versailles is French, okay, that's where Louis XIV lived, the palace that he built. So be sure, and the witches in Lancaster County. I really just want you to talk about, the idea of them searching for witches, period. The Enlightenment was supposed to get rid of that stuff. But this is what was happening prior to the Enlightenment. People were talking about people calling them witches and hunting them down and doing all that kind of stuff. So that's your study guide for your quiz on Friday. You want to just have as much information about those items as you can. I'm going to do a quick read of the visual study guide that I'm also going to put as a document on your page. So I want you to look at that, make yourself familiar with it. Lesson 1 dealt with Europe in crisis, the 30 Years' War. I didn't put that on here. That's on here too. I want to make sure that's on here. The 30 Years' War. That is on here. Basically what happened here is it began in 1618. It was the first war between Protestants and Catholics. Remember, every war, three things: who's fighting, why are they fighting, and who won. So let's listen to this and make sure you put a date and where. Okay, so 1618, Protestants and Catholics. After 10 years, the forces of the Catholic Holy Roman Emperor, the forces of the Catholic Holy Roman Emperor crushed the Protestants. Fearing a powerful emperor Denmark, France, and Sweden entered the war. With Catholic France fighting the Catholic emperor, the war was now political rather than religious. It ended in 1648 with the Treaty of Westphalia, reducing the power of the emperor and empowering German princes. Very important. The lesson two, something important here, the revolutions that were taking place. You've got the Stuarts and the divine right. King James I of the Stuart dynasty believed he received his power from and was responsible only to God. Civil war and Commonwealth. A civil war erupted in 1642 between the supporters of King Charles I, who were called the Cavaliers, and the supporters of Parliament, who were called the Roundheads. The Restoration. Although the Stuart dynasty was restored with Charles II in 1660, Parliament kept much of the power it had won in the Civil War. The Glorious Revolution. Nervous about the Catholicism of King James II, Parliament invited his Protestant daughter Mary and her husband William of Orange to invade and take the throne. But nobody died. Nobody got shot. It was a war, but they called it a glorious transfer of power because there was no bloodshed. And then the third lesson was absolutism in Europe. Absolutism is a system in which a ruler holds absolute power. In 17th century Europe, this power was believed to be received from God, the divine right of kings. These leaders claimed the divine right to rule. In France, Louis XIV, that's what he said. In Prussia, Frederick the Great or Frederick William, that's what he said. In Austria, this guy named Joseph II, he said it too. In Russia, Peter the Great, he said it. All these kings were claiming, I'm supposed to be here and I get to do what I want because of the divine right of kings. So watch when people have justifications for things. Make sure that's a good justification versus it's a reason to give you a ticket to do whatever you want. So that's our summary review. That's me going over what you need to do today. If you have questions, please email me at tjcooper@jmcss.org. I am going to be on the live meet. I'm going to have my camera off and I'm going to be watching your comments. So I'll make sure that your comments are correct and that they're not off track. Don't harass people, okay? Make sure you do the work. And most of the work that I'm asking you for the items that you're going to complete on your own, the choice assignments, that's going to be due by Tuesday. Okay, so you got today and all weekend to try to get something put together and send that to me via email. All right, thanks a lot.